Welcome in, kiddies. Welcome to another episode of Green's House. I am your host, Jericho Green. Thank you for being here. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and share. Shout it from the rooftops to your neighbors, to your countrymen. Like and subscribe to my new channel, Green's House. I welcome you guys. Thank you for being here. And you know how we do it. We sit down with amazing people who have an interesting story to tell, and damn it, I'm keeping that going. Today, we have a friend of mine. He is a tax-paying American citizen, a proud father, and a member of the law enforcement community. People, put your hands together for my friend, Kenny Sowels. What's up, Kenny?
Not much. Happy opening day of baseball.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I see your gear. I
Oh
should have
yeah.
said, I should have also said, proud Yankees fan. Actually, the first time I went to your house, you showed me the Yankee room that you had. I'm talking a museum, just the
hmm
gear and the memorabilia. So how are you looking? How's the outlook for the season this year for your New York Yankees?
Well, I tell you, it's always the same with us. We got to stay healthy. That's the big thing. We lose a couple puzzle pieces, and then we're kind of screwed. So staying healthy is huge, and we just got to hit the ball. And when we play a team that's not as good, we need to beat them. So we got a great lineup. Um, if I had to pick today, I'm hoping for the Yankees Dodgers World Series. That would be kind of cool. They
Mm.
both have great lineups, so
Hmm.
we'll see what happens. But it's always exciting on opening day.
Two storied franchises. Now, I
hmm
myself am a Niner fan, so I understand about staying healthy.
hmm
But to somebody who's not as big of a fan as you are of baseball, what kind of injuries are you looking at? Because you think football, yeah, they're running into each other,
hmm
of course, but baseball, what kind of injuries, do those guys usually suffer? Aside of like a pitcher, the what's that
Tommy
surgery
John
that
surgery. Tommy
Tommy
John.
John? Yeah, yeah. So
hmm
I mean, is what kind of injuries do pro baseball players have to deal with?
Well, the biggest ones I've seen lately has been getting hit by pitches and getting like broken fingers and hands and stuff. I mean, Judge was out; he missed half a season, and he probably would have even broken his own record for home runs if he hadn't gotten the broken hand. Um, uh, Stanton came up hurt with a hamstring, and that's kind of plagued him. So, hammies, broken bones, things like that. Every once in a while there'll be something in the outfield where they misstep or something, but usually it's getting
Mhm.
hit or running bases. That's usually what you see.
Yeah, and we've all seen the the video of, was it Randy Johnson who smoked that poor bird
Oh
when he
yeah,
got in front of that fastball. So
yeah.
balls are coming in hot, people. So hey man, I wish your Yankees the best. And when I say Kenny is a serious Yankees fan, I'm talking, kids sometimes stay home from school on opening day, like that level. Kenny is serious about his Yankees and about his baseball. So good luck to you guys this year.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Um, but I do want to kick this thing off. I usually ask this question of everybody that I sit down with, no matter what they do, but kind of let us know when, like the time frame. You're an '80s baby, '90s baby. When and where did you grow up?
So I was born in 1981, so I'll be 43 this year. And I was born in Sacramento, California. I predominantly grew up in South Sacramento, um, but kind of ran all over the place.
Hmm.
I stayed out of trouble and things like that. I was pretty focused on basketball, and my parents knew that I wanted to play college basketball, and so that helped keep me out of trouble. So they trusted me quite a bit. So.
That's cool. Now, being somebody who I was also born and raised in California, but I was born and raised about 3.5 hours away. I would say south of Sacramento on the coast. But growing up in the '90s, there was a rapper by the name of Brother Lynch who was from the south side of Sacramento. Now,
Mhm.
is that the kind of south side Sacramento you grew up in, the one that he would often talk about in his raps, or was there another side to South Sacramento?
No, that's the one.
That's the one and only.
Yeah, that's the one and only.
So
So,
how do you think you escaped the slings and arrows, of living on kind of a rough side of town?
I mean, keep your head down. I wouldn't say I was. I mean, Sacramento is a lot different now.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say I was popular or anything like that, but I was well known, especially in my community, for basketball. And I just kept my head down and I played ball. Um, there's times where we would go play down at the projects and stuff because they were the only ones that had lights at night and we could play. And we kind of did the white men can't jump thing where all my buddies would not pick me and they would play it like I was just the white kid out there that couldn't play. And then
Uh-huh.
then they would pick me last, and then we would play for money and stuff. So it was a different childhood, but like this day and age, I wouldn't want my kids to grow up down there. It's even worse than what it was when I was there.
Wow.
So my parents moved away. I mean, everyone left Sacramento just because the politics, number one,
Mhm.
and then number two, it's dangerous. It's not the same Sacramento.
So you said parents. So that means a mom and a dad. So do you think your father's presence also helped you, keep your head down and play ball, as you put it?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. My dad and I are very close. We've always been very close, um, and he's always been a big believer in me. He told me I could do anything I wanted to do. Even to extremes like, oh, if you want to play in the NBA, you can play in the NBA. You can do it, man.
Hmm.
And he was always very supportive. I mean, I remember uh, my dad made a deal with me so I could work on my game at night. We would go and break into my high school gym and we would shoot from like 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock to midnight. And the rule was I had to be to school on time and I had to have good grades. But he would sit out, we would drive out to my school, I'd break into the gym and he would rebound for me and I would just shoot, 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 and work on my game. And so
So
my dad's always been a big presence.
yeah, that support and belief from your father is priceless, because belief and support from your mother is also important, but that's your mother. You could be
Mhm.
Quasimodo and my baby should be a model, but having that from your dad, you can't put a value on that. So what I'm getting from what you said was hard work and dedication will make you good at something.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to put in the time. My new thing is golf. I started that a few years back, and I have goals. I set goals, and then in order to achieve those goals, I have to go out and work on chipping, work on putting, things like that. And that's why I love the game because it's a challenge. You're not playing anyone else really. You're playing the course, and you're trying to beat your own scores. And so that has been a good getaway for me, and you got to work on it. And that's the way I think in my opinion, everything in life.
Yeah, be dedicated and work hard. And I heard Mike Tyson say something, not usually one of his profound statements, like my defenses are unscoopable, stuff like that. But he said that in order to be good at something, you have to do what you don't like you love it. So whether it's
100%.
getting up early, working out, working on your swing, your putts and chipping and all that stuff, it's I'm sure it's not always fun. You don't always want to do it. You're not always well rested and bright eyed and bushy tailed when you get out there, but and to get good at something, you got to work at it no matter what, and you got to treat it like you love it, because that's the only way you're going to be able to give it the
Yeah.
dedication. Because if not, it's real easy to talk yourself out of doing the right thing,
Hmm.
especially as an adult with nobody's in charge of you. You're in charge of everything. You go where you want, you eat what you want. So it's real easy to say, this couch is comfortable,
Yeah,
got
not
the game
today.
coming on. Yeah, that's that's so easy. So that dedication is crucial, man. And something, speaking of fathers or fatherlessness, being in law enforcement in your years in the game, so to speak, did you see fatherlessness play a big part in the suspects that you dealt with?
Um, I would say some. I think I think sometimes people kind of use that a little too much this day and age as a
Mhm.
scapegoat, but I mean it definitely plays a role. I mean, um, but then again, I've seen it where they have both parents and both parents are just worthless.
Mhm.
Um, I make sure with my kids, and I'm not a perfect dad. No one's a perfect dad. We all make mistakes. But like I make sure I tell my kids every day that I love them. I'm proud of them. I hug them. And I see people even in my personal life outside of work where they don't say any of that. Like I know a kid right now, he's like, "Oh, my dad's never hugged me." Like that's horrible. And
How?
it's not like his dad's a bad guy. He
Mhm.
just is. It's just how maybe that's how he was raised. I don't know, but like I tell my little guy all the time, like, man, I'm proud of you. I tell Addie, I'm proud of her. And so I think that's important. But I don't think it's fair to say that a lot of suspects don't have dads. I think it's this day and age, they come from every walk of life.
And I told you this off camera, but I want to tell you this on camera. I ran into your eldest the other day at the park, and she was with her friends, and the confidence that she has to come up and speak to me every time I've seen her at the store, at the
Mhm.
Walgreens, I've seen her, wherever, and she always comes up and speaks to me. How are you? Good to see you guys. And that's confidence. And I think that comes from her father's love and her father telling her that, I love you. You can do it. That confidence is everything. And as parents, we have to build our kids' confidence way up here because life is going to chop you down a little bit, but we need to put enough reserves in the account, so to speak, to where they can weather that. So, good job to
Absolutely.
you on
Thank
giving
you.
her that confidence. Cause you see, kids who are shy, don't want to talk,
Mhm.
don't want to give you eye contact. And she does all of those things the right way. So thank you. Thank you for putting out a good person into the
Oh,
world for
thank you.
people to run into. But how was college? Where'd you go to college and how was that experience? And kind of a third one, was law enforcement your focus when you went to college?
I'll answer that one quickly. Yeah, I've wanted to become a cop since I was 3 years old. It was cop or MBA. Those are the two that I wanted to do. Um, I mean, I think all kids have a dream of playing either, NFL, MLB, something like that. At least
Mhm.
boys do. Um, so I went to Chowan University in Murfreesboro, North Carolina. So I went all the way across the country. I didn't know anyone when I got out there. The coach invited me to come out during my senior year and check out the school, and they offered me a spot on the team to play. And so I played 4 years, and that's a Division III school in northeastern North Carolina. And college was a blast. I didn't like high school very much. I mean, I kept, C plus B average, maybe B minus average. But college, I was A's and B's. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the freedom. I was on my own. I could do what I want. And it's kind of up to you whether you're going to focus or you're going to flunk out.
Mhm.
And making your schedule and everything like that, I enjoyed. I enjoyed college basketball. Um, and once again, like you hear stories of people not making it through college and stuff. That really wasn't an option for me because if I didn't play ball or make it through, my parents weren't going to be able to afford to send me to another school or sometimes even bring me home. Um, and my parents worked hard. Um, and they did everything they could for me. Um, but it, basketball kept me out of trouble even in college. Like I got invited because I was the California kid in North
Mhm.
Carolina, and so like kids are like, "Oh, come to this party," and no, I'm good. I got 5 a.m. practice in the morning. Like I was focused,
Mhm.
and that was a blessing. I'm glad because like my senior year, then I went to some parties and stuff, but before that, I was focused because I did not want to lose out.
Yeah, that's rare to see in young people, that focus, and
Hmm.
because again, like we said, it's easy to say, not today. It's also easy to say, yeah, I'll go to that party. And I'm sure playing ball, there were probably a couple of ladies who knew who Kenny was and things of that nature. So I'm sure it was real easy to get sidetracked. So to have that focus, that's pretty rare in such a young person. And there's some young people in my life who were teenagers about the junior senior year in high school who have a focus.
Hmm.
My son's barber. He's about to join the Air Force, and he has a plan to use to get a loan to go to the military to get a loan to start a business. So to see that focus in people 18, 17, 18, 19 years old is pretty awesome. Um,
Yeah,
so let's.
you don't see it anymore.
Mhm.
I referee high school basketball, and I can tell you, even in that, I've seen it where the youth right now they have no desire to work for anything, kind of like what we were talking about before. But also, there's no focus, um, and there's some contributing factors that I think contribute to that. But these kids these days are way more athletic than I ever was. They have more talent, but the difference is they're not willing to work on it. And so me as a referee, I see it, I'm like, man, these are not very good games because no one works on their game anymore. They want that instant gratification.
Mm-hmm. Do you think social media has played a part in that?
As far as the accessibility to watch the NBA and getting bad habits from that, I do.
Mm-hmm.
I think overall electronics, I mean, I can tell you right now, my kids are way better kids when they don't have electronics. Um, I think AAU basketball has absolutely ruined the game, because and college coaches have even talked about it. Um, it used to be like 90s, 2000s when I was growing up and stuff. You would play 2 games a week. The rest of the days you practiced. Well, AAU is the exact different. You're going to play 4 or 5 days and you practice 1 or 2. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not a recipe for success. They're all about the showboat and the instant gratification, and games are more important than practice now. And in my opinion, I think it has kind of ruined the game.
Yeah, because there's always been the NBA and the pro leagues, and kids would look at that and think that they could just be it, and
Mhm.
that's when your parents come in and tell you, no, these guys were out in the rain, out in the dark,
Yeah.
shooting all the time, practice, 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 just like you did.
Mhm.
But I think with social media and cell phones and all that kind of stuff, you see even more of it. So it dilutes your sense of reality even more because you're seeing more of those images. You're seeing those AAU players. You're seeing the college
Mhm.
players. So you think even more, all I got to do is be tall, or all I got to do is show up. And you don't see the grind. You don't
Yeah,
see
you
those
know.
guys, their dads taking them and to wherever they have the lights and really putting it in. Because like
Mhm.
Steph Curry, you hear a lot of guys saying Steph Curry ruined the game with the 3-point shot. But Steph Curry has probably shot 5 million
Oh yeah.
shots, 3-point shots from all over the court. That's why he's so good.
Yeah,
That's
that's
why he
exactly how he
takes
is.
2 steps over the half court line and drains it and turns around and puts his hands up
Mhm.
before it even goes in, because he put in the work,
He
and
did.
it's boring.
Mhm.
It's putting in the work can be boring, but if you want to be good, no matter what, if you want to be an influencer, whatever the hell that is, or a sport or a craft, you got to put in the time, period.
Mhm.
And if you don't, you ain't gonna make it.
Well,
You're not gonna be good enough.
you look at Steph Curry, he's one of the ones that I actually do appreciate because he has put in that work. And you watch, he doesn't travel and stuff like that. His fundamentals are pretty sound. But like LeBron James, he travels all the time.
Oh man.
And they don't call anything. See, I
Yeah.
was blessed because I grew up with Magic, Bird, Jordan. I mean, those guys, like you said, Jordan will tell you that's all he did was shoot, shoot, shoot. Larry Bird. People don't realize how great he was.
Oh man.
I mean, I think Curry's a better shooter than Bird, but Bird's right there with him. Bird would
Yeah.
come down and tell the bench, I'm going to shoot this in your face. And they would put 2 people on him and he'd come down and shoot it in their face. And then he'd turn back at the bench and go, I told you.
Yeah.
Like,
And that's demoralizing.
oh,
That that
yeah.
that takes the wind out of your sails when they tell you what's coming and there's still nothing you can do about it. I think Larry Bird
Mhm.
was the original 3-point shooter. I'm
100%.
sure Steph Curry, probably modeled some of his game after him, but those guys, and I understand LeBron being one of the greatest because of his accomplishments and stuff like that, but
Yeah,
I don't know if it's because of our era, but Jordan is the greatest basketball player ever, I think.
without a doubt.
And my argument to people who think otherwise, who may think that LeBron is, then tell me LeBron's number. When he came into the league, what was his number? What number is he wearing now? And it's not, oh, just 23. No, if you're wearing number 23 on the court, you're expected to be the best player. Why?
Mhm.
Because Michael Jordan wore 23 and he was the best player. And in
Mhm.
92, in the Barcelona Olympics with the Dream Team, I don't remember who they were playing. I think it was an African country or something. But Jordan had like 103 fever. He had the flu and he went out there and still put up like 53 points. That dude was just, he
Mhm.
had that killer mentality. This trading jerseys and taking pictures after the game shit, I hate that because you're
Mhm.
supposed to be adversaries, your enemies. He's trying to win your game. He's trying to take your victory from your clutches. So how are you guys friends. I mean, you can be off the court, but I don't like that. I think there needs to be a clear, defined line that you're the enemy. I'm the good guy. You're the bad guy. Let's go to war,
Yeah.
but
Do you think
I don't know.
Jordan and John Starks traded jerseys at the end of the Eastern Conference Finals?
Hell no. They probably
No.
fight each other. They probably fight.
It was a war. That was one of the greatest series, I think, in NBA history. That Knicks Bulls Eastern Conference Finals, dude, they beat the hell out of each other.
Yep.
You did not go to the paint, and Jordan kept going to the paint, and he'd get hit, knocked down, and he would just keep on going.
Those dudes are Rodman. That dude was a monster. There's a
Oh,
reason
he was.
everybody's walking around with Jordans on their feet. Jordan hasn't played
100%.
basketball in 20 years, and they're
Mm-hmm.
probably the best-selling sneaker out there. There's a reason because of the imprint he left on the game, and that's all because of his hard work. And that even goes back to his father, making him practice, making him work on his craft. He was cut from his high school basketball team. I remember in his Hall of Fame speech, he brought the coach there. That was a chip on his shoulder. Michael Jordan brought his high school coach to say, look, I made it, after all the great things he did on the court. But no matter what it is, no matter what you want to do, if you're dedicated and you work hard, success will come. That's just the way it is. It will
100%.
happen. People will seek your skills out, if they see that you put in the work, and they'll want to help you. If they see you're trying to better yourself and work hard, people will seek you out and give you whatever help they can because they like to see that. How was the academy? When you went to the police academy, how was it? And was it what you thought it would be? Because you mentioned you wanted to be a cop since you were 3. So I'm sure you imagined what that academy experience was going to be like and the training and stuff like that. So how was it and how did it stack up to your imagination?
So the academy for me here was very easy. And the reason is because when I was in college, I started buying drugs on campus for a drug task force and turning it over. And I was like kind of an informant for them back in North Carolina. And so, like 2 weeks before I graduated college, the sheriff pulled me over on the side of the road and offered me a job. And I became a sheriff's deputy out there. And the way it works in North Carolina is you do your field training and you actually work the road for up to a year. Within that year, you have to start the academy in North Carolina. So I was already working as a road deputy. And then my dad had some health problems and I moved back to California. And so I had all that experience under my belt and kind of knew what to expect and everything. And so when I put myself through the academy here, it was a breeze for me because I knew the military style, because that's what all police departments do. But it just was easy. The laws were easy. I studied. I made flashcards. I I would read the penal code in the bathroom. I mean, I was dedicated once again. Everything I've done, whether it was dog handling, the academy, golf, baseball, I was focused and I would put in the work.
So, being that it was so easy, was there a level of disappointment almost because you wanted maybe more difficulty, more of a challenge out of it, or were you kind of glad that it was so easy?
Um, I wouldn't say disappointment because I knew that it came from my hard work in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it was more fun than anything for me because it was something I always wanted to do. But I wouldn't say I was disappointed. Um, the test, the knowledge part is a little challenging. You gotta not only know the law, but you have to know how to apply it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's probably one of the hardest things for new cops to do. Is you can tell me, oh, 459 of the penal code is burglary, but do you know how to apply that and arrest someone? I think that's where you get some people who don't really know how to do that, and that's where they struggle.
Well, explain how would you, let's say in that scenario, how would you apply the law in that situation?
So in California with the penal code is there's elements to crimes. You can't just say, oh, he went into Target and stole stuff, so that's burglary. No, burglary, you have to go into a building, and a building is described as, or the definition in California is 3 walls and a roof. So technically, like a carport, you can burglarize a carport. Um, so like little nuances like that. Whereas if they just go into Walmart and steal stuff, that's a petty theft, especially in California now because they've raised the amount you can steal to $950, where it used to be 400. $950 of stuff at Walmart, that's a lot of shit.
That's a
So
couple
I mean,
carts full.
yeah. So
Jeez.
and they also made it to where if you go in and steal and you come outside with it and put it in the car and go back in for more, you used to be able to add all that up. Now it's 2 different crimes. So if you steal $900 each time, it's just a misdemeanor. So like the application of the law like that is where some people they just can't pick up on it, especially the new kids. So uh, that was something I excelled in. I got it. It made sense to me. So
Yeah, I had a similar experience. Yeah, obviously your time in North Carolina made you more prepared, than the average rookie who was coming in, or a cadet that was coming in with no experience. So it kind of put you ahead. And when I was a kid, I joined the Sea Cadet program. It's kind of like
oh yeah.
ROTC, but it's not attached to a school. It's privately funded. So in the Sea Cadet program, we use the same course manuals and stuff that they did in the Navy. So if you were to be a third class petty officer, let's say in Sea Cadets, you read the same third class petty officer book that an active duty sailor was reading. So by the time I got to boot camp, I knew how to march. I'd been on the color guard. I'd been, I had AROC. That's the person who calls the cadence when you're marching. I already done that. I already knew rank recognition, some of the signals and the flags. So I was way ahead of a lot of the other recruits that came in who were just off the street who didn't know shit. So that was
Yeah.
cool. That made it a lot easier, and I didn't have to worry so much about when those tests would come up. I already knew. I had already been 3 years in the Sea Cadets. I already knew about ranking recognition, how to salute, when to salute vehicles that drive by, and how to pass
Hmm.
an officer, and if you're walking up behind them, all these little things and nuances about it. I had already known it, so I can relate to that feeling of being supremely prepared
Hmm.
for your situation. So, with speaking of California and the petty crimes, which it seems like they want everything to be a petty crime.
Pretty much.
For those of us who are civilians and we're seeing these clips on our phones and on TV of the smash and grabs and the people
Hmm.
just snatching shit off of the rack and walking out, is that just being sensationalized on social media? Or is it as bad as we think? Is it as bad as it looks, and is it as rampant as it appears to be on our news feeds and stuff like that? Or is it kind of blown out of proportion, and it's not that bad out there?
No, it happens everywhere. I mean, it happens even here in Yuba City, which is a smaller town. I mean, it's about 80,000. Um, I should say city. It's not a town, but it's smaller than Sacramento. But I mean, they'll go
Mhm.
into like Ulta and just clean out shelves and stuff, and it scares people. Like the people, like the women who are in there shopping, they go running out because they're scared. They don't know what they're gonna do.
Mhm.
Um, I just saw on the news, I think down in Southern California, they closed the mall to like for the day because they got word that there was going to be one of these incidents, and so they just closed the mall. I the problem with that is okay, so all these businesses now have to suffer. They still have rent to pay and stuff like that, and you're just going to close a mall. Um, but it's not sensationalized. Um, But then again, there's no punishment in California anymore for any of these crimes. I mean, there is, but it's one of these. It's not what it
Mhm.
should be. All those people should be charged with robbery, in my opinion. And some of the elements of crime are theft, and then using force or fear. Well, I think that we need to redefine some things because when you have everyone running out of the store because they're fearful, well, there's your fear. There needs to be something that these people can be charged with that's way more serious than a ticket,
Mhm.
because you and I are paying that cost. Um, that's why prices are going up. That's not the only reason, but that's one of the reasons prices are going up. And so we need good people to stand up and say, no, we're not doing this anymore. And there's been some store owners who have, where they've locked their doors and locked all those people inside. I think that's a great idea. Granted, you're taking on a risk. I mean, what if they're armed? We don't know, you know? So, I mean, I think that there needs to be some laws created or rewritten that target this kind of behavior. And there's several other behaviors too, or incidents that I think that should have their own specific crime section. But as long as we just keep on allowing it, it's going to continue. There was a famous incident down in Los Angeles at LAPD, and the captain said, "What you allow is what you're promoting." So if you allow this stuff, you're basically saying, yeah, go ahead and do it. You can't just ignore this. It's not going to go away by just thinking it doesn't happen. But we need good people to stand up, politicians, we need good officers and citizens who are going to say, no, we're not going to deal with this anymore. But it's yet to be seen.
Yeah, unfortunately. There was an incident, I want to say it was in California, where this guy comes in. He takes one of those 32-gallon plastic trash cans, those dark gray trash cans with the handles on each side on the wheels, and he goes behind the counter of a 7-Eleven and just starts clearing the shelf of cigarettes into this trash can with the liner in it so he can just walk out with it. Walked right behind the counter like he worked there, clearing it out. And the two Indian dudes that worked there, I'm not assuming, they had turbans on, so I'm going to say they were Indian. So one of them, the guy grabs him and like holds him down. The other guy grabbed like a mop handle and just starts beating the shit out of this dude. I mean, full swings, bam, bam, hitting him on his leg. Every time he would go to block something, he'd hit him up high. When he goes to block up high, I mean, he cracked this dude across his knee, beat the shit out of him. Now, I don't have a problem with that. I think
so that was in Stockton.
That's right.
That was in Stockton, California. And those two clerks actually got charged. And people came to their defense and said, no, that's not what we want. And I don't know if any of your viewers know where Stockton is, but it's a shithole. I mean, it leads in homicides a lot. I mean, it's one of like it's in the top 10 most dangerous cities in the country. And those clerks, what people didn't know is those clerks had been robbed by the same guy a few nights prior. And so they charged them with like, I think 245, which is an assault with a deadly weapon, because they were hitting them with that mop handle. But from what I understand, people came to their defense and said, "No, this is bullshit," and it all went away.
Which is great, and especially with that evidence, it's not like witness testimony. There was video of this guy coming in and just emptying the shelves like he owned the place. The owner wouldn't even do that. So I think we need to see more of that, and I think the more people feel abandoned by the powers that be and the people who are supposed to be in charge, they're not going to walk away from these things that they've built and they base their livelihood on. That's how they feed their families. And just because you own a store doesn't mean you're rich. These people have bills to pay. They have families to support. They have kids in school. They have a wife who's become accustomed to a certain level of living, and it's their life. Whatever they're putting their money toward, that's their business. And to think that people are just going to walk away from that, they're just going to stand by and let these people do that, eventually they're going to get sick of this shit, because every person that does that isn't just coming in for merchandise. Like you said, you don't know if they're armed. You don't know what these drug-addled psychos are going to do, or if this is some kind of initiation and you got to hurt somebody, you got to shoot somebody. And I don't blame these people for not waiting to find out. I'm sorry. I'm not going to take the chance that you're just here to steal my shit. In Canada, last week, they were the whatever they call them up there, Mounties or whatever that movie with Brendan Fraser was. But they're at a city like a city council meeting, and the dude in charge is telling people, put your fobs by the door. You know, the key thing to press the button, open your car. Just leave it by the front door. And I quote, they just want to steal your car. I don't believe that. I don't believe that you would be willing to break into my home just to get the keys to my car. As far as I'm concerned, If you make entry into my home uninvited, you are here to sexually assault, rape, beat, and murder my family. That's what I'm assuming, because people, the level of evil that we perpetrate on each other is unbelievable. So that's what I'm assuming when you come in my home. So I'm going to meet that with overwhelming force. And I can't believe, and I don't see, I don't think it's impossible that that same sentiment is going to leak down here into the brains of these idiots we have in charge. You're going to ask people to make it easy for them to steal your stuff, and you have the mayor of Chicago, the mayor of Minneapolis, or the AG for the state of Minnesota, suing car companies and suing Glock because people put switches on the Glock, or suing Kia because your cars are too easy to steal. What happened to punishment? What happened to, we're not going to go after the car company, we're going to go after the fools who keep stealing it? So have you noticed criminals being emboldened, knowing that they've got to know that all they're going to get is a little slap on the wrist, or, you know, don't do that anymore, or they get arrested and they're back out on the street before their victim gets out of ER? Have you
100%. Like the big one is the $950 mark for grand theft or petty theft, because like I'll ask them, I'll be like, hey, why didn't you steal more stuff? Oh, I had to keep it under 950, man, because they know it's a misdemeanor. They get a ticket. They don't even go to jail. They get a ticket. And the California state legislature has taken away a lot of the crime sections that were useful tools, such as like theft with a prior. And I should actually blame it all on the legislator. It's the voters, because they don't read their ballots. A few years back, there was a Safe Streets and Safe Schools initiative on the
Sounds
ballot.
good.
Sounds great, right? Everyone wants to help schools. And they use that every time as, you got to read the fine print, because what they did is they basically said, we're going to we're going to actually up the threshold for certain crimes. And when I tell you which ones, you're going to be like, what? But they're going to up the threshold for certain crimes. And so that means less people will go to prison. The money they save from sending people to prison, oh, we'll give that to the schools. Then they didn't even give it all to the schools. They reallocated it other places. And so people voted on, I just want to give more money to the schools, which, by the way, is not a problem you can solve by throwing money at. Yeah, schools need to be built. Yes. But these teachers and stuff, like, it's about hiring quality teachers. It's not about how much they make. And granted, money helps get quality teachers. I understand that point, or that argument. But every year, every year, there's something on the ballot to give schools more money. But people voted for this. And so it made petty theft go up to 950. It made personal possession of heroin, methamphetamine, a misdemeanor. So you could have, and then they don't even let you define what's a personal amount. Like, is an 8-ball, is that a personal amount? Some people will use it. That's my 8-ball. That's a lot of dope. If I caught you with that when I first started in this job, you were going to prison, period. And now it's a ticket. And I've even had it where when that law first got changed, I was writing a tweaker a ticket, and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "What?" "I'm writing you your ticket." He goes, "Are you a rookie?" And I had like 12 years on or something like that. And I'm like, "No, I'm writing you a ticket. You get it." He goes, "I'm not going to jail." I said, "No, you're not." I said, "New laws. You can thank the California voters." And I explained it to him. He goes, "Whoever voted for that is stupid." That was the criminal saying that. I mean, it's just so absurd that drugs now, I mean, heroin, things that will kill your kids. No, misdemeanor. You get a ticket.
So it sounds like they're lowering the punishment for these crimes. They're emboldening the criminals to commit more crimes. they're hamstringing the law-abiding citizen when it comes to carrying firearms and stuff like that, putting all these restrictions. You can't put this on it, can't have this many bullets in it, blah, blah, blah. So it sounds to me like somebody who would do that, or somebodies who would even write those kind of laws, is not concerned with the safety of the citizenry, and they want it to be more unsafe for us. So if somebody were to say those people are evil, because I don't think it's about money or power. They already have that. I think it's a lot of these cases, it's good versus evil. So if somebody were to say these people are evil for writing laws like that and pushing policy like that, do you think they would be wrong?
That's one I don't know. I don't really have an answer for. I don't know why anyone would change these laws the way they have. But I also don't understand why the California voters voted to keep a dollar gasoline tax. That made no sense. That was going to be repealed a couple years ago, and people go, "No, you know what? I want to keep getting taxed more." Who says that? It makes it it's absurd. So the same thing with the criminal laws. Some of these things are voted on by the California voters. So I can't blame all state legislature. Um, some you can. They definitely don't have um, the best interest of cops on their mind. They don't. A few do here and there, but wait till like Nancy Pelosi's at home in San Francisco, and I know her husband got attacked, but wait till they like steal all her stuff. Oh, I bet you that's when someone will go, oh, well, we probably should change this. And that's not right either. What makes her so more important than you or me? We're all equal.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what it's going to take, is something bad to happen to the people in power. Because otherwise they don't give a shit what happens to you. Just like they want to take away guns and stuff. Well, they're guarded by people who have guns.
Mm-hmm.
Gavin Newsom, the governor, he's guarded by a team of California Highway Patrolmen who are all armed. But they don't want you to have guns. That's when the guns are the problem. And that's where I think a lot of people are getting sick of the hypocrisy. But
Yeah,
I don't have an answer if they're evil or not as far as why they're doing this.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I guarantee you his security team doesn't have their magazines maxed out at 10 rounds. I guarantee you
No.
that.
No.
I guarantee you there are probably some 17 rounders in there, or whatever they want, whatever they need to protect Gavin Newsom and his family. And that's a funny thing, that they make these laws for us that hamstring us as far as law-abiding citizens who own guns, but their security teams are armed to the teeth and will lay your ass down if you make an aggressive move toward them. And I believe that if you're not doing anything wrong, why would you have a problem with a well-armed society, with your citizens arming themselves, especially when you're releasing the wolves back into the meadow with the sheep? You're really, give them 10 years. I'm tough on crime, but you only have to serve 5, and of that 5, you only have to serve 2.5 in custody. The other 2.5 can be served on parole or probation with some caseworker or parole officer or probation officer who has 900 other people to watch. So it would make sense that they would say, well, we dropped the ball over here, but we'll make it easy for you to protect yourself. I think they should incentivize people to own firearms and train, not just give a bunch of people guns. Incentivize training, incentivize going to the range or working with somebody who knows about firearms to make you a better gun owner. And they can do it. Look at when we had the sweet and sour sniffles lockdowns. They were pushing, that snake bite, but what they could have done is give people vegetables. We partnered with Nike or Under Armour. We're giving everybody a workout, a sweatsuit and some shoes. And here's a map to your local. Here's an app where you can find your local walking trail or hiking trail. Get outside and be healthy. They could give people, if you come down and take an hour class on gun safety, we've partnered with Lincoln Safes. We're going to give you a gun safe or something like that. We're going to give you a holster. They could do that. And I can't help but think there's something up their sleeve. They're doing something wrong to where you wouldn't want people to be well armed and well trained. If you're not going to go against us or do anything to us, Why not?
Yeah, what's the incentive or what's the motivation?
And as a police officer, do you see anything wrong with a well-armed, well-trained society?
No, no. And this is the thing with like the gun control argument where, like Gavin Newsom wants to take guns from people and stuff. The people who own guns, I should say the majority, probably very high 90 percentile of legal gun owners, they're not the ones breaking laws. Even if they have a weapon that California has deemed as illegal, they're not breaking the law with that weapon. They have it because they think it's cool or they hunt with it or it's for home protection. They have a reason for having it. The people committing gun crimes are there. No matter what, you're not going to get rid of guns. Those guys, they're already breaking the law when they commit their crime, whether they use a gun or not. You think they're going to listen to a new law that says you're not allowed to have guns? They're going to get a gun somehow, some way, anyways. And some people will argue, well, we can't just do nothing about it. Well, it's not doing nothing about it. It's you need to make the punishments severe. Like, why do you think there's no graffiti like in Korea? Because they'll take you and they'll cane your ass in the middle of town. They don't care. And that's why you don't graffiti or anything. And I remember an American citizen took like a poster, like an advertisement poster, and he wanted it to take home. They charged him with theft. Like, you don't do that stuff there. And that's why, and I'm not saying I want to be Korean or anything like, or live in Korea, but you look at what they're doing, they don't have these kinds of problems. Their problems are different. They don't have crime like that because they handle it. Look at the terrorists that just killed all the people in Russia. Dude, they cut off one of their ears.
They beat the shit.
Yeah.
One dude, they wheeled him into the courthouse. He was unconscious.
Yeah, they said he was in a coma. and I don't think and by no means do my comments, I don't think we need to get to that point. But there's something to be said about a punishment. Like, I'm not going to go pick a fight with Mike Tyson because I know there's a consequence. Like that guy who was talking trash to him on the plane. He got punched in the ear.
You know what? I said the real hero in that story were the people who designed that airplane, because Mike Tyson were able to get a full swing. The seats are close. That was the hero, because if Tyson could wind up and blast that dude in his face, and that's what you get. You don't get sloppy and start running your mouth to one of the greatest boxers ever, or you can expect to get your jaw wired shut. Look at Dubai. Dubai has its issues, but you're not going to go in Dubai and start tripping or even being loud and aggressive and intoxicated. They don't play that shit. And that kid in '94 who went to Singapore and was doing graffiti, they caned the shit out of him. And Americans over here, oh no, that's Singapore. Singapore's rules. I guarantee you, I don't make a lot of guarantees, but I guarantee you that dude's never going to go back to Singapore and spray paint a damn thing. They took skin off his ass.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Well, and I can tell you this: don't take marijuana to Russia. Ask Brittany Griner.
Yeah, worst trade ever. Worst trade ever.
Well, I'll tell you, her tune changed about America. She loves America now.
Oh yeah, I bet, because you've seen the other side. You've seen You've seen how the rest of the world and some other countries do shit. Pretty nice here, huh? Pretty cush. You got recourse. You got you can call people. You have organizations that ensure your rights. You have a constitution. Yeah, other countries don't play that. Other countries don't have that. I wish part of your senior trip, forget going to Washington, D.C. or Disneyland, go to a third world country and look at people who pull rickshaws for a living, or in Africa where the police just pull up, you 10 guys look like you did it, put you in a paddy wagon. You might come back, you might not. Places where my brother was in Kuwait. Was it Kuwait? Yeah, he was in Kuwait, and this is 4 or 5 years ago. And they have these huge open areas where they have, markets and festivals, and they hang the lights and stuff, and you go there and party and hang out. But every so often, about every 20 feet, they have these little things that look like a capital T, and they were about a foot off the ground, and they were all next to drains. And that's for people who are punished. They tie your neck to that T in the ground and they slice your throat and the blood goes down the drain. They don't play that shit over there. And I wish that we would either outsource our punishment, meaning send our criminals to these countries who give them what they deserve. Because if you know you can murder somebody or multiple people and they're just going to stick you in prison where you can have Oreos and you can have a cell phone, you can work out if you want to, you can make friends and hang out with other perverts. That's not a very stiff punishment. That's not very scary. But punishment needs to be severe so people understand either I'm going to do that and face a severe punishment or I'm not doing that shit.
It's a deterrent. That's all a punishment is. It's no different than, your kids use foul language. You're going to get this bar of soap. That's the one I remember all the time. And every once in a while, you get your ass whooped too.
Yep.
It's a deterrent. And like when we discipline our kids, it's not because we are mad at them or trying to hurt them. No, they need to learn. But we've gone so far from that, and everyone wants to use an excuse like, oh, they're disenfranchised. They don't have any ability. I don't care if you're poor or rich, have a dad, don't have a dad, whatever. Everyone knows what's wrong. Mm-hmm. And they know, like, oh, I'm not supposed to do that. It's almost like it's just instinctive. Like, I know that I shouldn't go up to my mom's like bowls or something and break them. It's common sense, right? That's why it's called common sense. And it's natural that we know what is wrong and what we should or should not be doing. I would say very few cases where kids go, oh, I had no idea I couldn't do that. So I get tired of the excuses. There's always an excuse, always. Like no one just owns their shit anymore. Like I said, I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes, but I'll own my shit. And that's just something that is kind of lost this day and age. And I try to teach my kids, like, no, you need to own that.
Yeah. Good or bad, that's on you. That's what my mom and dad would always tell me, good or bad, that's you. If you do something good, you get all the praise. But if you do something bad, you get all the punishment. And my mom would always tell me, if you don't make good decisions for yourself, there's somebody in society who's going to make those decisions for you. Mm-hmm. So you either do the right thing or they will assign somebody to you. You'll become a prisoner and they'll tell you when to get up, when to go take a shit, when to go to bed, when you can play outside, when you can't. So it's better to make the decisions, the right decisions for yourself, or somebody will gladly do that for you.
Well, that's how it used to be in prison, where they would tell you to get up. Now they have iPads and cable TV, and yeah, it's insane.
How? I remember I had a family member and my mom would send her care packages. And even as a little kid, I remember thinking, you get a care package? Like you get fiddle faddle and shoes and shit? Like I thought it was prison. In my mind, prison is outside, breaking rocks in the sun, sleep, rinse and repeat, right? Until your sentence is up. Like hard.
Yeah, like, oh brother, where art thou?
Yeah, I want you to learn songs to sing as you guys simultaneously swing the hammer to make the big rock into a little rock. And that'll probably, 10 years, whatever you got of that should cure you of coming back and lower that recidivism rate. But if it's just a class reunion with all your homies and, oh man, I remember I had a friend of mine, he did 11 years straight for attempted murder. And he's a good guy now, but when he was younger, he was not. And he told me one time, he said, yeah, man, I asked him, like, what was your routine like in prison? And he said, man, Friday night, I get off of work, I grab some weed, and go back to my cell, drink and smoke. Like, we're still talking about prison, right? What do you mean go grab some weed and go back to your cell and drink and hang out? I've never been to prison, never will, unless somebody does some crazy shit to my family. But that just doesn't sound like punishment to me. It sounds like just kicking it. Yeah, you can't leave and there's no women, but I guess they get pretty close. Well, in California, shit, if you're a dude, you can go to a women's prison, but you never see it the other way. You never see a woman who identifies as a man going to a men's prison, but you'll definitely see a guy twist his hair into pigtails. I've been a girl for a couple months, and then they send them to a women's prison, and guess what? The inmates get pregnant. That's weird. I thought you were a chick, and whatever. Yeah. But
probably a South Park episode.
Oh, they've probably done it already. South Park should be should be a national treasure, man. I love that show. And I think it's so successful because everybody gets it. Nobody's
Oh,
safe.
and they call it out. They call people out on their stuff. Like I love
Yeah.
it. They
Everybody
actually
gets
kind of
it.
hold people accountable.
Yeah, they've been on air since what, 1997? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the model. That should be our model for society. Call everybody out. Nobody's safe. But I do want to ask you, are there some good calls that you've been out on where things ended well? You were able to help somebody and it wasn't, blood and guts and screaming or, something bad. Like it actually ended well.
Yeah, I mean, I've always enjoyed, I got into it just like every other cop's going to say, to help people. That's the main goal. And those opportunities do come along. The one I remember probably the most is I found some kids in town um, begging for money out in front of one of our local convenience stores. And they asked me if I had any change. I said, I don't have any change, but I can use my card. Are you guys hungry? I'll get you guys some food. And they're like, yes, please. And then as I was turning around to walk in, the kid goes, can you get me some chapstick too? And I was like, what? And he goes, my lips. And I got close. I could see his lips were so chapped, like they're bleeding. And I said, yeah, no problem, man. And so I went in the store and got him chapstick and food. And then I started asking questions because I'm like, they were probably 8 and 10 or 12, somewhere in there. There's two boys. And I'm like, well, where are your parents? And it's a school day. And it's like, 9 o'clock in the morning. Why aren't you guys in school? And they said, well, our parents are asleep in the park. And it was like, I want to say November, December, maybe January, somewhere. It was cold.
It's cold. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, it was cold. And I know this because my patrol car had like the exhaust coming out of it. You could see it. I'm like, wait, you guys are sleeping in the park? So we went over to the park and found the parents. And I spoke with our school resource officer who had a bunch of connections like with Health and Human Services and stuff like that. And um, being a canine handler, I have a bunch of canine sponsors that like to buy stuff for dogs, and they help out with the Canine Association, and they're goodwill people, and they usually have some money. And so I hit up a few and got them like some cards to pay for, like got gift cards for like Domino's and Taco Bell. We got them a bunch,
Mhm.
and then I went out and bought them all sleeping bags because they didn't have any sleeping bags. Um, so I went to Target and bought, 4 sleeping bags, and the school resource officer got them set up with some housing and stuff like that. But they had to jump through some hoops to get that housing, but it was free housing. Um, and so we got them. I did everything I could for them, and I would check on them and stuff like that. And then I didn't see them for like a couple weeks, and I thought, okay, cool. They probably got into that free housing program, and I went to a different park for a different call for service, and I saw the family sleeping in the park again. And I went over there and I talked to the parents, and they basically told me that they didn't get into the housing program because they refused to drug test. They had a little dog that they couldn't take with them. And then there was one more reason. And I said, so wait a minute. You're telling me that you're going to make these two kids sleep out here in the cold? And Northern California gets pretty cold in the
Yeah.
winters. I mean, it gets below freezing. I said, you're making these kids sleep outside because you guys don't want a drug test and you have a dog. I was like, that makes no sense to me. And by then I could tell the kids like their health was being affected. And so I took custody of the kids. I took the kids away from these two parents. And once I took the kids out and got them clothing and set them up, and they went to foster care. Both parents are heroin addicts, come to find out. And I took those kids, and they now live in foster care, but they're going to school. They're getting great grades. Um, and that kind of sounds bad because I had to take kids away from a parent. But when it comes down to it, those parents weren't doing what they should be doing as parents, and they didn't really care about those kids. And I say that's a good story because now those kids are thriving and they have people that love them and want to take care of them. And that's not every foster care story, trust me. But
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
this was one that was a really, really positive ending, in my opinion. And those two parents are still on the street. They're still doing heroin. They get arrested all the time. But me and another officer were able to save those kids because they probably would have gotten on dope or something by now or killed or
Yeah.
and so that in my opinion is a positive story, and those ones come along every so often. I mean, I love helping people, but I also don't believe in what I call feeding the stray cats.
Yeah.
Because some people just take advantage of it and things like that. Now we have our local transients here that I'm familiar with, and the ones that don't cause problems. If they're standing out in front of 7-Eleven, I'll be like, "Hey, do you want a candy bar?" When I go in there, it's not going to hurt me to buy them a candy bar. But uh, that was one that sticks out. There was one where it was a motor vehicle accident where a car crashed into a big tree at one of our parks. The street dead ends into the park, and I got there and I thought for sure this guy was going to be deceased. And we ended up getting him out of the car. And you don't always hear what happens after they go to the hospital and stuff because we do our traffic collision and that's kind of it. And it gets handed off to traffic, or you know, you kind of lose once your job's done. You just move on to the next call.
Hmm.
And I was coming out of Target maybe like a year later, and this lady came running out in a Target vest and started hugging me. She's like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much." And I'm like, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
and
What's going on here?
and she goes, "You saved my son." And I didn't even know how she knew me. I don't know how she knew me. She goes, "You saved my son at Northridge Park. He's alive." I said, "You mean the one that hit the tree?" And she goes, "Yep, that's my son. And he's alive. He's got a long way to go, but he's alive." And it's things
Man,
like that that make it like you're like, okay, this is a good thing that we do. Um, the excitement's always there. That's cool stuff. But those are the stories that you're like, yeah, this was worthwhile.
that's great, man. Those are great stories, and especially for those kids. But I will say, next time you catch those parents sleeping in the park, let Riggs wake them up. Next time, let him get out and give them a wake up call because that's terrible, man. Those are children.
Mhm.
How and
Kids.
you mentioned the kids, they would probably be dead, or who knows what their parents would have done to get dope. What if
Oh
their
yeah.
dealer's a pervert? They would gladly give up their children to be ruined by that monster just to get high.
Yeah.
And that, man, that's awful. I'm glad you were able to save them. I'm glad they're doing well, and you were able to save that kid. And that's cool for you guys to kind of see the other side, see what happens. Have that lady come out and thank you. And as a parent, to be able to have your kid, their life be saved, and then to be able to thank that person, yes, it's your job, but still, nonetheless, you save that kid's life. And
Mhm.
that's amazing, man. And so I guess and another thing I want to ask you, like you said, on to the next call. So does it take time for you to be able to kind of shake the etch a sketch, so to speak, and start over? Because you might go from that call to my cat stuck in the tree. You might be
Yeah.
full throttle and then boom, have to throttle down, or go to a scene like that. And then the next call, you have to be caring and kind and kind of switch gears. Does that take time to do that, or it's the job and that's just what we have to do?
I think it depends on the call. I mean, there are definitely calls that have bothered me, and those take a little bit longer. Um, but you're absolutely right. Like, you don't know what hand you're going to be dealt each night. You could go to 4 or 5 domestic violences, and then next thing you know, you're leaving that and you're in a pursuit, and then you're going to you know, an elderly person that died in their bed. I, it could be anything. You never know. Um, I would say pursuits are a little hard to come down from. Like, it
Mhm.
takes a little bit. Like, I think every officer, after they're in a pursuit, you're jacked so high. Even like uh, even if you're calm, and I'm usually pretty calm during pursuits, there's still that adrenaline rush where you're pretty jacked. I mean, it's just natural. I mean, you're doing 100 miles an hour. You want to catch the person. It's exciting. You know, you got a lot of things going on in the car. I have a dog barking behind me, and then I got to worry about getting the dog. There's a lot of moving parts. And so your adrenaline's really high. And I think every officer should take a moment after pursuits and just, and this is something I learned with time, is take a deep breath and take 5-10 minutes, go get a Red Bull or a soda, whatever, and just, stay on the call. Stay on the call that you're on. Don't clear the call, because if you clear the call, they're going to start sending you this more stuff. But stay on the call and just decompress for a minute. I think that's huge, um, because we as officers really get into the habit of clear a call, go to the next, clear a call, clear a call, clear. We want to clear the screen. Well, the thing that I always have to remind myself is that no matter how fast I clear that screen, there's going to be more calls come in. There's always going to be uh, it just, no matter what, the work is going to be there. You're never going to fully clear that screen. That's basically, I guess, the moral of what I want to say. And
Mhm.
so, but we get in that mode, and if you don't take time to decompress, I think problems can arise from that. So to answer your question in short, yeah, I mean, sometimes it is hard to kind of come back down to reality after certain things. That's why, like after shootings, they take you off a scene and they take you to the PD, and you sit in the room pretty much by yourself until attorneys and stuff get there. But you're done. You're done for the day. And that the reason for that is because of that adrenaline. You're just so high, and you need to come down and decompress from that.
Now, has there ever been, I don't know, for lack of a better word, a guilt that you feel like at the end of your shift, like you're done, so it's time for the next guy to come on and do their job? Have you ever felt like you wanted to stay on and like keep going, but you have to go home, you have to rest?
Um, I mean, um, there's been times where I got home and I felt guilty about some calls.
Hmm.
Um, and if the guys are shorthanded or something going on, and usually I would say, hey, I get a hold of like the watch commander, be, hey, do you want me to stay longer and clear some calls for you guys? And if they say yes, I'm more than willing to do it. If they say no, then you got to go home. I never really felt guilty about that because the decision's being made above me.
Hmm.
But there are calls where I have felt um, guilt or sadness, after I got home and had time to think about it.
Hmm.
And those are not always good times. I mean, those are some dark times when those calls happen and you don't have the outcome that you want.
Hmm. um Now, has there ever been a shift where it's pretty dead, like nothing really happens? And have you
Mhm.
ever had a shift where it's balls to the wall from clock in to clock out?
Oh, all the time, all the time. Um, the summertime, it depends on what shift you're on. I mean, graveyard is usually busy up until about 3 in the morning, and then from 3 to 6, it's kind of dead. But in the summertime, if you're a swing shifter or day shift, it's usually call to call all day long. But I've also had it where it's quiet, like eerily quiet, and you're like, what's going on? Something's going to jump off. Like you just know.
Mhm.
And then I've had it where it's quiet all night, or it's quiet for most of the night, and then all of a sudden there's a shooting or you get in a pursuit. It just kind of comes out of nowhere sometimes. So I've had both.
Mhm. Now, speaking of the adrenaline of a chase or a call or a shooting, and I imagine it may not be adrenaline, but there's heavy emotion involved, like with those kids you were dealing with, or a car
Mhm.
accident that you showed up on. There's pretty heavy emotions going on. I'm sure at most of the calls, and we've heard it. This term has changed over the years. It used to be soldier's heart. shell shock, but today we call it PTSD. And we usually associate that with war, with soldiers or Marines or airmen or sailors, people fighting a war, quote unquote. But I think there's a war going on in every city. You know, cops are the good guys, and you're going against the bad guys. They're your adversary. They're the enemy, I guess, for lack of a better word. So, is that something that you deal with? And I'm hoping that the department supplies the things that you need to deal with that. Am I wrong?
So, I mean, PTSD in law enforcement it's not a new thing. It's been here the whole time. But it's now starting to be recognized as a major problem in the United States, um, with officers having a lot of issues. So, uh, a few years back, I was sent back to Kansas City to a special clinic for PTSD, because I was having some issues. Um, and my issues don't really come from, we'll call them bad guys. Like I don't have a problem fighting bad guys or chasing bad guys. That's not what got to me. Um, you know, a motor vehicle accident really was a turning point for me. I was the first on scene, and I got there, and it was a motorcyclist who had been hit, and it was one of my best friends who is a sergeant at our department, and he was off duty on his way home and got hit by a vehicle, and I ended up saving him, but the whole incident, and when you don't know, you just get on scene and you pull the motorcycle off of him, and then you turn him over, and then all of a sudden it's a shock because it's your friend. Um, and then doing CPR on dead bodies, or hoping that you can save them, that takes its toll. I don't care who you are, and a lot of some cops will go, "Oh no, that doesn't bother me." It will. It
Bullshit.
will.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's total bullshit. And the thing I've learned is that it's way more prevalent than anyone thinks. After I got diagnosed with PTSD, I came back to California, after doing that week-long clinic, and I learned that there was like 3 guys on my shift who hadn't gone away to like a PTSD clinic like I did, but they were on medication or they were seeing a therapist. And the only reason they told me was because I went back there to that clinic. If I hadn't done that, they never would have told me. There's so many officers who are dealing with stuff, and people don't even realize it. And your mind really, your brain is evolved. Once you see that kind of stuff and experience that, you're never going to get rid of it. And like when I had bad dreams before that, I just thought, oh, it's just part of the job that, I got to suck it up and go on. But everything takes its toll, and it's just a matter of time before it's too much. It's like filling up a
Mhm.
cup. The cup is made to hold so much. Everyone's cup is different sizes. Some people's are, a little tiny paper cup. Mine happen to be like a 32-ounce cup. And at some point, it's going to overflow, and you're going to have issues. Um, the biggest thing I can say is, or my advice to other officers would be, is don't wait till it's too late. Let someone know you're having problems. Um, I was lucky. I didn't take it out on my kids or anything like that. Um, but there was things that I was experiencing that were very uncomfortable, and it was very difficult. And I was afraid of judgment. I was afraid of letting my family down. That's a
Mhm.
big one. I was afraid of letting my department down. Um, and when it starts affecting sleep and your overall ability to function, you got to reach out and let someone know, because I guarantee you there's people in your department who have already sought help. I guarantee it. And the last part of your question is that law enforcement's getting a lot better at offering these types of services. It's still not perfect, but it's a lot more than when I started. I mean,
Mhm.
if I had brought that kind of stuff up um, when I first started, like 06, 07, oh, they would have laughed you out the door. It was not acceptable. No, you need to toughen up and get back out there, go answer calls. And today, and I didn't even go to my department. That's the other part is I didn't go to my department and go, hey, I'm having some problems. I had some administrators come to me and go, you're not acting like yourself. We think there's some stuff going on.
Mhm.
And, that's hard to hear, from guys you trust. Um, and I took some time to really reflect on what they were saying, and they were absolutely right. Um, and I have seen a lot and I have done a lot. I've been blessed to be a K9 handler, a SWAT guy, um, you know, and with that, you end up seeing a lot. And if you're a go getter, you're going to see a lot. I've always been kind of a shit magnet. If there's someone bad in town, I'll find them. I just run into them. And so, you know, uh, you see a lot in the job, but when you're a K9 handler and SWAT guy, you see a lot more.
Mhm.
And so, uh, once again, my biggest advice is that people need to reach out and let your admin know, I'm having these issues. I can't sleep. Mine was lack of sleep and depression.
Mhm. So I guess there were kind of signs building. Did you feel like there were signs building up to it, or was it you all of a sudden just kind of hit you like a ton of bricks when the administration reached out to you, or were you like, yeah, there, I kind of noticed, some signs myself, but then there is that, you're a good cop, so you want to get out there, you want to help, you want to have more of those moments where you're
Yeah.
saving those kids and saving lives. So was there a buildup, or was it just like boom, like you said, that fellow officer of yours, that sergeant, when you turned
Mhm.
him over, was it like wham?
It wasn't immediate. I mean, the days following, I would say it was really, really bothering me. Um, and uh, I didn't realize that that was really the turning point at the time, and I didn't realize that there was warning signs before that. Looking back, and after learning about PTSD and stuff like that, now I can look back and go, there's warning signs. There's
Hmm.
absolutely warning signs. And I think the biggest misconception with PTSD is people think, oh, PTSD, you're crazy. No, you're not crazy. It's just you have a shit ton of life experiences that were traumatic, and they can resurface, and you just can't get rid of them. But you haven't lost your mind. You're not crazy. I mean, I'm still the same old Kenny that I've always been. Um, I've just learned how to deal with those instances when I have issues. I've learned how
Hmm.
to deal with them better, and getting through the day, while living with all of that. But when you don't have tools to cope with that kind of stuff, it's very confusing. And I think
Hmm.
that's where the depression came in. Um, so I would say it's just about managing it and you know uh, learning how to deal with it on a daily basis. Some days I have great days and I don't have an issue, but there are some days that are really dark days. I've learned to share that with my family and my girlfriend, when I'm having a bad day, which is not something I ever would have done before. I would have just gone and sat in the Yankee room and secluded, which is another big indicator of PTSD and depression, is people will go and seclude themselves. Um, and that's not a healthy way to do it. So now I coming out of that clinic, I made a commitment that when I'm having a problem, I'm going to tell my loved ones,
Hmm.
so that they know. Because it's not fair to them if all of a sudden I'm just like, get all pissed off or something. And that way they can also help me get through it. But there's always warning signs, and I think they manifest differently in different people. Um, but I just looking back, like that's when I noticed a big change. But there was signs before that. You know, I've done CPR on a baby for 30 minutes and then lost the baby. The baby didn't survive. I mean, that's one that lives with me. Um, you know, there's so many. I've been first on scene on like 8 homicides in my career, and I mean, some of it is gory, evil shit.
Yeah.
And my dad always said, you know, be careful what you watch on TV. That was his big one. And then when I got in law enforcement, he said, be careful what you see on the job. You know, if you don't have to go up to the car wreck, don't go up to it. And I was like, well, Dad, I'm fine. You blow off your dad, and because you're a tough guy and you know
Mhm.
everything. And looking back, my dad was 100% right. Like, you can't unsee shit. You cannot unsee it. I mean, when I was a deputy at Yuba County, I mean, I remember pulling arms and legs and heads off of a train track from a train accident, from a kid that was walking on the track with headphones on, didn't hear the train coming, and got obliterated by a train. And as a deputy in Yuba County, we're deputy coroners too. So you just go along with the body bag and you just putting it in a bag.
Shit.
That's not something that's ever going to go away. It will never go away. And I think the one thing I would hope that people would, like, non-officers, the public, the general public, is they have no clue what officers have to deal with or encounter on a daily basis. Um, cut them some slack. If you get an officer that is rude to you, maybe he is an asshole, maybe, but also maybe he just came from picking up a kid off of train tracks. Maybe he just got called by his wife who was bitching at him about money. Who knows? It could be
Mhm.
anything. Um, and the thing I get tired of hearing is like, oh, officers, we're held to a higher standard. Yeah, we're held to a higher standard, but we're human too.
Mhm.
I all the stuff I deal with at work, and then I also deal with all the same stuff you or anyone else deals with at home. Um, so I would ask the, because you
There we
never
go.
know what he's going through.
Mhm. I think that's big that you said that you tell your family what's going on, because whether it's your kids, your significant other, your spouse, they want to help you. They want whatever they can. They want to help you, and especially your woman. She wants to help you, to comfort you, and it's tough because as a man, you are, especially to your kids, you're Superman. Dad can do anything. Dad, he's a cop. He goes out there and he fights the bad guys. And sometimes it's tough to be vulnerable and say, hey, dad's having a tough one, or dad's dealing with this, or dad's struggling with something. That's tough for a man to do that, because certain things are expected of us and we view ourselves in a certain way. And even, with little things, it's hard to be vulnerable. It sounds weird, but it's hard to be vulnerable with the people who care about you the most, who wouldn't see you as vulnerable, who would love to help you, would love, oh, share that burden with us. But those are the people who it's toughest to be vulnerable with. And it's kind of weird, and God's playing a cruel joke on us, I guess, in that way. But I'm so glad that you see that and you're taking steps to help that. And that is true, man. Cops, everybody, I've said it before, cops, or everybody's not built to run toward the screens. So we do need to cut law enforcement a little slack. They're dealing with some crazy shit. And yeah, the train accident or the homicide, or the death, whatever that's categorized as. Wow. You
I
know what I'm
mean, think
saying?
about your ride along. We're sitting there, everything's kind of cool and everything, and then all of a sudden, we're hauling ass across town,
Yeah.
and I did CPR on a kid who had been shot, and he ended up dying.
Yeah. I,
Um,
I remember that
me,
call.
me,
Yeah.
me, me and Braley were there. Um, so I mean, once again, it's just stuff that, and you don't expect it to bother you because, like I said, we're so in the mode of, okay, I got to get to the next call. And that's why,
Mhm.
like, in the moment, it might not bother me. but it's those times where I get home and then your mind starts really reliving it or wondering about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and those are the bad times, is when you have that moment to think about it. You're like, holy shit, what did I just go through?
Mm-hmm.
During the shift, you don't really have time to think about it because you're busy. And so that kind of keeps your mind off of it. So
Wow. That's, yeah, I'm glad that you're able to shed some light on that. Um, now, what was, what are the things you liked about it? What are some of the cool things about being a cop? What's the good stuff?
being a canine handler, I think, is the greatest job in the world. Um, I was really passionate about it. I think it keeps officers safe. There's no better feeling than getting a call in the middle of the night and it's the supervisor going, "Hey, we just had a homicide. The suspect ran into that field. We can't find him." And then your dog, you go on scene, your dog ends up finding him and biting him, and it's a team victory. You know, you caught a bad guy, you and your dog caught a bad guy, but it's the whole shift because you can't be successful so those other officers aren't creating a perimeter. And so it's a
Mhm.
team win. It's a great feeling. Um, the adrenaline rush is always cool. Um, any officer who says it, oh, I'm not in it for the adrenaline rush, they're fucking lying to you. Um, I mean, it's cool. I mean, it's fun. Um, it's it's gotten a lot more frustrating in California in the last, I would say, 5 years or so, because they really have handcuffed us in what we can and can't do. Um, I think the biggest fear, I've never been scared of getting killed on duty. I have a lot of confidence in my abilities. I'm a smart cop. I'm safe. So I was never, and I was surrounded by talented and good cops. So I was never worried about getting killed on duty. My biggest fear is being prosecuted for something that I didn't do.
Mhm.
There's a lot more like coming out about the whole George Floyd thing, where it's kind of looking like those officers actually followed policy and all that, but that's not what was heard. And I don't want to get into that because that's a big argument, but I mean, there's other instances like that officers have been prosecuted and it comes out that they actually didn't do anything wrong. I think that's my biggest fear, is being prosecuted for something unjustly, especially here in California. I mean, there's some really liberal district attorneys that they're all about sending cops to prison, whether you
Mhm.
did something wrong or not. Now, and I'm a big believer, if you're a cop and you do something wrong, you should go to prison. We are no different than anyone else. But to target me just because I'm a cop and make an example out of me, I think that's my biggest fear.
Yeah, and that will cause you, no matter who you are or how long you've been doing the job, that's going to cause you to police differently. If that's in the
100%.
back of your mind or hanging over your head, that's going to cause you to police differently. And the only people who suffer in that is, or not the only people, but along with the officers are the citizens. They
Mhm.
suffer as well when the police have that hanging over them. And speaking of being a canine officer, I've mentioned this to you before. I met Riggs, Dutch Shepherd. His dog is big. It's tall. It's long. It's big. Has a big head, a big muzzle on it. Nice big white sharp teeth. So I don't understand who the fuck is going to hear the officer and like 10 times K9, 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 K9. We're gonna let him go. We're gonna let him go. Come out, come out, come out. You hear all that shit. You hear the dog doing that exciting bark, yelp, squeal thing that it does when it knows it's about to get down, and you hear that. You hear the officers, but you still don't come out with your hands up. I don't understand. Now, I've never delved into the criminal lifestyle, but I'll tell you this: if the police are out there and they say we have a canine and we're going to let him go, that's the part where I come out, hands up, obeying all uh, orders, because that dog wants to play. That
Oh yeah.
dog he wants to work, and his version of fun is not going to be fun for you. I've seen, never in real life, fortunately, but on cops, I've seen those dogs let loose, and just the deepest bites you've ever seen in your life. That dog has a mouth full of you, your arm, your leg. I've seen a dude get bit in his ass. The dog was pulling this dude out of a drive-through window by his ass. I don't get it. I don't understand why people don't come out immediately when those canines show up on the scene. And let me tell you, a Dutch Shepherd is a big dog. You're thinking of a German Shepherd. Those are pretty big too. But a Dutch Shepherd, it's a beast.
Yeah, he's
Why
big.
don't people come out when you tell them to?
So, well, first I'll tell you, Riggs has been reassigned to another handler because right now I'm out on medical leave. I didn't lose my canine position or anything like that. But he is an asset, and they don't want him just sitting at my house doing nothing. So they've reassigned Riggs, which I'm comfortable with. So he's with a new handler who's learning, and she's pretty excited. She did a lot of work to earn the opportunity to handle that dog. But when I had Gunner, which was my first dog, because the only two people that Riggs apprehended, I didn't get to talk to them too much, but Gunner, he had like 28 or 29 street bites, and I got to talk to them. And when I asked him, like, hey, you obviously heard me, like, why the hell did you not come out? And almost every time he goes, I just didn't think the dog would find me. I'm like, okay. And so, yeah. And so that, or they said, I just hoped he wouldn't find me. But most of them, I just didn't think the dog would find me. I thought I hid in a pretty good spot. I'm like, you're stupid. So that's usually what it is. That or some of them just roll the dice. Like, I'm gonna take my chances, man. If the dog misses me, I get away. If he doesn't, then I get my ass kicked. So it just depends on the criminal. But it doesn't make much sense to me either, because everyone that gets dog bit has an opportunity to give up. Every single one of them.
Multiple opportunities.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Do they not understand the biological makeup of a dog? They smell way better than we do. They can hear. Mm-hmm. I imagine it's like usually a matter of seconds before that dog finds the person. Like, what are you thinking? It's an animal. It's built for this. It's trained for this. It's bred for this. And well, you're dumb.
No, like Gunner, please. Like Gunner, I could probably tell you 15 to 20 seconds before he bit someone that he was going to bite someone, because his behavior would change that drastically. It was like, oh, he smells them, here it comes. His tail would change or his head would whip. It was very obvious. They're amazing animals, man. And the what they bring to the table for law enforcement is irreplaceable. They've tried robots and this and that and drones. They all have limitations. The dog is the best one. A dog doesn't get tangled up in carpet. A robot does. A drone can't open doors. The dog, all I got to do is just crack the door a little bit. I'm safe, and the dog can get in there. There's just really something to be said about the use of a dog in law enforcement.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of, I went a couple years ago down to the National Navy SEAL Museum in Fort Pierce, Florida. I was a keynote speaker there. I met a lot of operators, current operators, former operators. And one of the guys I met, his name was Phil, and he works for, I think it's Braisden, I want to say, but he trains, it's a company out of Canada. Shout out to Josh and them. But they train Malinois, Belgian Malinois, and German Shepherds for military service and law enforcement service. And he has one of his own. And it was cool to see them. And I'm sure your dogs were the same, where when they're around the family, they're in family mode. They're a family dog. The kids can pet them and play with them and all that stuff. But when it's time for business, a switch goes off. And they did a bite exercise where the owner, one of the co-owners, Baisden, excuse me, he put on a suit and they had one of their Belgian Malinois go after him, and it was all good. The crowd, do you guys want to see this? Yeah, and all this stuff. How far do you think it's going to get? And the dog's wagging his tail. But as soon as it was time for business, the dog stopped wagging its tail. It almost got that. It crouched down like it was in, you know,
Prey drive.
yeah, it was ready to go. And it was, I think Josh got like 10 feet or something. And this dog just came screaming in and grabbed him. And one thing I learned is there's a certain way to take a bite when you're in one of those suits.
Absolutely.
You kind of go with it because the dogs will break their teeth. Because all they're focused on is getting you. They're not tripping off anything else. So they'll break their teeth. And some of the dogs,
they can jam their neck too.
Yeah. And he said some of the dogs would get their teeth replaced with like metal implants or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that sounds pretty cool. But yeah, these dogs are amazing, man. And to think that it's not going to find you is just crazy to me. It knows where you are before.
Yeah, you've seen Gunner. I mean, Gunner, he's 29 street bites, and then you've seen him swim with my kids. I mean,
yeah,
he's
amazing.
He's an award-winning dog. He won the Western States several times, and you know he just has that good on-off switch. Riggs, I didn't trust really. He's a little too big and wants to play a little too rough, so I didn't let him around the kids too much. But you know, I'm sure we could have gotten there. The more work you put into him. But Gunner definitely had just the golden on-off switch.
Mm-hmm. I was just amazed because when I went over to your house, he was in the backyard, you know, kind of running around using the bathroom or whatever. And I could tell he wasn't being aggressive or mean, but he played, you know, a little rough. Like I was like, hey man, and the size of him, how much did he weigh?
Like 100, 105.
Dude, that's a full size dog, right? Yeah, he's a big boy.
He's a big boy.
He was a big ass dog, and I was like, all right, Kenny, let's go ahead and get him put away. This is getting, you know, you get those hairs standing up on the back of your neck, and I wasn't in fear.
It's intimidating.
It is. It really is intimidating. But like you said, they're an invaluable part to the department, and they're necessary. And bottom line, if you're ever in a situation and the cops say we got a K9 here, just come out. All right.
Yeah.
Just come out.
Let me touch on one thing that reminded me of a story you asked about. What are the great stories that you have? I actually, one of the best stories I have is, I won't give his name, but there was a parolee. And when I say parolee, he's tattooed, like full head. He's bald. He was bald, tattooed head to toe, all prison tats. And he was at our local movie theater, and he was spun out of his mind on methamphetamine and who knows what else. And I literally told him, dude, the movie theater wants you gone. You're scaring kids. Just go away. I wasn't even trying to arrest him because he was like 6'2", 6'3", maybe 280 pounds. I'm a big guy. And I'm 6'1", and right now I weigh 225. But he was big, and he's also on meth. And I was willing to just let him walk down the street as long as he didn't bug anybody. Like, just go. And fuck you, get out of here. This is my movie theater. I'm like, oh, come on, dude. I really don't want to fight you today. And he just refused. I mean, I bartered with him. Dude, I'll buy you a sandwich down the road. Just let's go away. So I go up to grab his hands and put him behind his back, and he throws me off of him, and it takes his fighting stance. And I said, dude, I'm a K9 officer, and there's a dog in my car, and he's gonna bite the shit out of you. And he goes, fuck that dog, bring it. I'm like, okay. So I hit the button on my belt, the door popped, and I could see Gunner, and I had trained Gunner to stay in the car until I called him to me. And his head sticking out from where the door was open in the B pillar. And I said, dude, this is your last chance, man. I'm not going to fight you. And he's like, fuck it, bring it. I'm like, oh, all right. So I called Gunner to me. Gunner got to me, and he started like coming at me, and Gunner took him on the arm. and he dragged the dog to where I was standing, was trying to punch me with his left hand. The dog's biting him.
Oh shit.
Long story short, we get in this big fight, me and this other officer, with the dog attached to him. We're punching him and fighting him, and he's still fighting. And long story short, he goes to the hospital. We get him in custody. We take him to the hospital. He had to have numerous sutures. He had to have some surgeries to repair his leg because Gunner let go of the forearm and went down to his calf and basically took him into custody as well as his calf.
Oh.
So fast forward a few years, like, let's see, that was probably like 17 or 18. So like 5 years later, I'm at a gas station that I always stop at to get a Red Bull. And I go to my car and my partner's inside, and I went to my car to get something, or actually no, switch that around. I was inside, my partner went out to his car, and I come walking out of the store, and it's my partner was Mike Gwinnett, which you know him. And he goes, "Hey Kenny, this guy wants to see if he wants to see Gunner." And he goes, "I told him you don't have Gunner anymore." And the guy comes over and he's wearing like a knit cap. It's down to his eyes, and he's got a hoodie sweatshirt. And I'm like, why does this guy want to talk to me? And he comes up to me and he shakes my hand and he says, "I want to see Gunner. Is Gunner in there?" I said, "I don't have Gunner anymore. I retired him and I have a new dog." And he goes, "Oh man, I was really hoping to see Gunner." I'm like, "How do you know my dog?" He goes, "You don't recognize me?" And I'm like, "No, dude, I've never met you before." And he goes, "My name is this." And he gave me his name. And I'm like, holy shit. It was the guy I fought in the movie theater parking lot. And I was like, how's this going to go? And he goes, "I just want to thank you. You saved my life." I'm like, how did I save your life? My dog chewed the shit out of you. And he goes, "Dude, that was the turning point for me." He goes, "That was the lowest of lows." He goes, "I went back to prison after all the surgeries and I got clean." He goes, "I'm married now. I got a job. I'm working construction." And he gave me a hug. And I said, "Dude, this is like the greatest story I've ever had in law enforcement, to where my dog kicked your ass and now you're thanking me for it." And so I said, "Can we take a picture?" And he goes, "Absolutely, man." And so we took a picture together, and that's probably one of my proudest stories. And he said, after the fight was over, he goes, "You treated me like a man." He goes, "You weren't a dick or anything like that." I've seen him a couple of times now around town, like in the grocery store. He always comes up and shakes my hand, very polite. But that was a pretty cool experience.
And that's to a citizen, a civilian, that's the worst case scenario. 6'3", 280, meth the fuck out, prison tats. That's a nightmare. Yeah. That's the stuff that's made of nightmares. And for it to turn around that way, that's amazing. You never know how you're going to affect people. You never know what somebody's wake-up call is going to be. And that does sound pretty low, you know, for him to be in a movie theater tripping like that, meth out of his mind. That's definitely a rock bottom. But shout out to Gunner too. You know, little did he know he's about to change that dude's life. So let me ask you this. I got a couple more questions for you. I know it's opening day, so the diamond is calling you.
Oh yeah.
What would you say to your son if he came up to you and said, "Dad, I want to be a cop"?
No, he already does, man. He was on the right track, man. When he was like 3 years old, he wanted to be a fireman. I was like, fuck yeah, do it. And now I want to be an operator. I want to be a dog handler. And not what would I say? I'll tell you exactly what I tell my son. If that's what you want to be, I will 100% support you. I will do everything I can to teach you the right ways to keep you safe and stuff. But honestly, think about being a fireman. I know there's a lot of cities where, you know, fire and PD have rivalries. We don't so much have that here in our city, but dude, those firemen got a good gig, man. They make more than a police officer. They cook and clean and go to a few calls. They drive around in a big ass, badass red truck that kids love. Everyone loves them. I mean, it's a pretty good gig. It really is. Now, don't get me wrong. There's still the PTSD issues that can come up. They see a lot of nasty shit too. But my hope would be is either don't be a first responder and do whatever it is you want to do. If you're going to be a first responder, be a fireman. I'm really still hoping, because he's left-handed batter like I am, I'm really, really hoping that he can play first base for the Yankees because they got that short porch, and then we don't have to worry about any of that bullshit. So
That's true.
That's my hope. But no, I just tell him, I was like, man, think about being a fireman. Being a cop is not all it's cracked up to be, and it's gotten a lot harder. It's not as fun as it used to be. And I think any cop will tell you that. If they don't tell you that, then they probably don't have 10 years on. They're probably brand new and still all goo-goo-eyed over, I get to drive fast and I get this and that. But I will tell you, as you get senior as a police officer, like all the senior guys I know that have retired, they're like, I don't know how the hell you do it. They're like, I wouldn't do it. It's not as fun as it used to be. It's very, very difficult now, especially, I mean, cameras, everyone's got a camera, and no matter what you do, you could do exactly what you've been trained to do. If they don't like one thing, they're going to pick it apart. Now, once again, I'll make the same comment I made earlier. If you do something wrong, you should be held accountable. 100%. That's not what I'm saying. Don't hide shit, or you should be accountable. But like some of it, like if I'm fighting someone and I ask them, or say, stop resisting, please stop resisting. And then I go, fucking knock it off, stop resisting. They'll show that video, and you know what they'll talk about? My profanity. And it's like, dude, I'm in a fight. Like, I know an officer that got in a shooting and used profanity during the shooting. He got written up by the department, not my department, a different department. He got written up for using profanity while in a shooting. Highest stress situation you could possibly have.
Yeah.
He's in a gunfight. They wrote him up for, and that's the type of shit that when I started, it wasn't that way. You know, the way I can kind of sum it up is law enforcement. Imagine law enforcement's a football game, and you were trained how to play football, right? You were trained how to be a cop. And then you go in the locker room at halftime. Could be half your career or whatever. But anyways, you go in the locker room at halftime, you come back out from the locker room, and the rules are totally different. And you're like, what the fuck happened? You trained me. This is how I was taught how to play the game. And it's not that way anymore, but they didn't give you any training to teach you how the new rules are. They just put these new rules in place. That's very difficult. Very difficult. I mean, when you're trained to do something and you react a certain way, I mean, in my shooting that I was involved in, I didn't even remember changing the magazine. I fired my rounds and I changed my magazine out of pure habit. When I got to the police department, when you get in a shooting, they take your uniform, they take your belt, they take your gun, they take everything because it all goes into evidence. And when I had to unload my gun, it was fully loaded. And I was like, what the fuck? Well, I had stowed that partially used magazine in my cargo pocket. I didn't even realize I had done it. But it was under stress and it was total muscle memory. And so it's very difficult to have new rules but not get any training on it. I would say that's probably the downfall of law enforcement right now, at least in California. I don't know how it is other places. I just came back from Florida, and it seems like being a cop out there would be amazing because the sheriffs out there like tell the citizens, no, shoot the shit out of people if they break in your house.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, they don't play.
Yeah.
And so, I can only speak to California. It's very difficult right now. And so that's why I tell KJ, my son, I was like, dude, just don't do something else.
But you know that calling, to law enforcement, that want and desire to be that.
Absolutely.
So, of course, as a parent, I hope he takes your advice and it's, firefighter,
Mhm.
KJ, that'd be awesome. But you do know that calling, Kenny. I got a couple more questions, kind of changing gears. Being born and raised in Sacramento, give me three places that if I go to Sacramento, you got to eat there.
Oh, so for Mexican food, it's on Franklin Boulevard and it's called El Naviero. That's really good. Um, it started out really small and it's a family owned business. Best salsa I've ever had. Um, for pizza, I would say a place on Franklin Boulevard, right south of Fruit Ridge Road, is called Roma's Pizza. That's like straight Italian pizza. That's as Italian as you're gonna find on the West Coast. Um, Man, I'm trying to think of some of my favorites. Ice cream, you got to go to Gunther's. That's on Franklin Boulevard too.
So get on Franklin, number one.
Yeah, you'll find something. Trying to think. There's other ones though too. Some of my favorites. Man, downtown. Oh, downtown for a romantic night with your wife. It's a hole in the wall, and you got to get reservations. But it's called Moxie, Moxie, and it's very very cool. They only have so many seatings a night, and it's a small
Mm,
restaurant. So, like, if you sit at the table you sit at, you're the only one sitting there for the night. The owner comes out and waits on you, and they'll give you a menu, and you'll look at it and you go, "Hey, there's not that much on here." He's got about like 20 other dishes that he's going to come and recite off to you by memory. And then they also at that restaurant they pride themselves on if you don't like anything on the menu or all the specials he has, they will go out. If you're like, well, I want a ribeye, they will run to the store, get it, and make it for you that night. You have to
wow.
be patient because it takes time, but
Mhm.
they will cook you whatever you want. And it's not over the top expensive. I mean, let's see, for a couple with a couple of drinks, maybe 100 to 130 bucks. It's
It's not bad.
not for a date night, no.
Yeah.
Um, and then a new one I found, which is on K Street, right by the new arena, is called Butcher and Barrel. That's a kind of a steakhouse. Um, One of the best old fashions I've ever had. They actually use chocolate bitters in their old fashions, and it was like amazing. So I
Okay.
would say those are some of my top places.
There's a place, and I'm hoping since you're from there. And damn it, I can't remember the name of it, but it was a sandwich shop, and it's across from the train yard. It's kind of in the industrial part of town. Oh, I can't remember the name of it, but my wife got tri-tip tacos that were
Oh,
just stupid. I got a tri-tip sandwich. I mean, it's like a destination place. Like I will drive
yeah.
there just for that and then come back home. I'm gonna try to remember. I'm gonna ask my wife when I do. I'll text it to you. But man, it was good. And I don't know if it'd been
There's
on
some good
dime.
places.
Dude, there's some
There's a
some dime some diamonds in the rough, man.
Oh yeah, there's a great. It's out in North Highlands, and it's like a lady's name, but it's soul food, and it's from what I've been told is it's like the closest thing to North Carolina food that I can find out here. I'll get you. It's like Tracy's or Susie's or something like,
Mhm.
and I'll get it to you. But from what I hear, the fried chicken, and then they have fried catfish too. I
Mhm.
heard it's bomb.
All right.
So
Now you're talking. Now give me
yeah.
a place that's like pretty bougie, expensive, high end kind of restaurant.
Ooh. In Sac? Hmm.
Because East Sac's pretty. Isn't that where they have the Fabulous 40? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, the Fab 40s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So isn't that yeah? So, I don't know if it's there, if a nice restaurant
No,
be there, but something pretty high end for those fancy folk out there.
um, downtown there's a bunch now. My favorite one used to be the Esquire Grill. It's not there anymore. And like I said, Sacramento's kind of changed. That Butcher and Barrel's kind of kind of pricey.
Mhm.
Man, I'm trying to think. Put me on the spot with that one. Yeah, I would say that Butcher and Barrels, it's up there. Oh, the Grange at the Citizen Hotel. That's pretty nice.
Okay. Well, I'm writing
Yeah.
it down. I wrote down Moxie. Write down the Green. Cool.
The one I just tried, which I took my life into my own hands, and I went into the city of San Francisco.
Oh, you're a brave man.
Whew,
Hope
I
you
was
wore your.
armed.
I hope
I
you
was
wore your.
armed.
I hope you wore your poop shoes.
We were very careful, but we went to
Yeah.
the House of Prime Rib, and I'm telling you, it was unbelievable. The prime rib it was worth every bit.
Well,
It
if
was
you're going to
very,
hand
very good.
yourself the House of Prime Rib, it
Yeah.
better be
Oh yeah.
mother's
And they
milk.
come out and
You know.
they spin your salad in the ice bowl for you, and
Okay, it's an
it's good.
experience.
Yeah, oh, it's an experience. And the little secret a lot of people don't know is if you order, like, I think it's like the King's plate or whatever of prime rib, if you want more, you can ask them for one extra helping of prime rib, and they will give it to you. A lot of people don't know that, but if
Okay,
you ask for it, they will give it to you.
trade secret. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if you guys are brave enough, but last time I was in San Francisco, which I think was September of last year, I wouldn't recommend like strolling around. There are some places where you can take
No.
a nice little walk or something.
Yeah.
What is it? Damn it, the not the planetarium or whatever, but there's like this place by the water where like all these pillars and stuff. It was that scene from The Rock where Sean
Oh yeah.
Connery, where they caught him after the big chase through the city where he was meeting up with his daughter. Can't remember the
Yeah.
name
It
of
has
that.
the name. It has the name. I know exactly. It's not an amphitheater. It's like something like that, though.
Yeah, but
I know.
that was cool. That was cool to walk around there. But if you think you're just going to take a stroll through the streets of San Francisco, I wouldn't recommend it. Get in, have your fun, have your prime rib, whatever you're going to do,
Get the
and get the
fuck out.
fuck out of there.
Yeah.
Beat feet, as they say.
Yeah. So we were there for my birthday in San Francisco for only one reason. So I've become friends with Macklemore by doing security for him at the Pro-Am at Pebble Beach. Well, he happened to be doing a concert on my birthday. And so I hit him up like, hey, it's my birthday. I'd really like to come to your show. And so my girlfriend got a hotel room and made a whole birthday, like 2-3 days out of it. Well, I'm used to the San Francisco of old, and we hear everything on TV about how bad it is. And I can tell you, it's all of that bad and more. So being used to the old San Francisco, I'm like, hey, let's walk down to breakfast, and we're staying in a nice hotel. We're staying
Yeah.
right across from the Fairmont at the Mark Hopkins. Beautiful hotel. And so I was like, let's walk down to breakfast. We walk down the street. The first thing I'll tell you about is there was like in the street in multiple different places, sometimes on the sidewalk, like pools of blood from more than one crime scene. And I don't mean like someone had a bloody nose and there's some blood droplets.
Fuck.
I mean like the size of a trash can, like blood dried on the sidewalk. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm like, okay. So I have a hoodie sweatshirt on and I have my gun in my hoodie sweatshirt and everything.
Yeah.
So we're walking and we get down to where Market Street was. And I'm sure you remember Market Street. It used to be the place to shop. Like Nordstrom's. They had a great mall. I mean, it was the place to go. All the designer stores were down there and everything like that. Well, all those stores are gone.
Mm-hmm.
There's homeless everywhere. Well, maybe not now that Biden came for that CPAC or whatever it was or whatever.
Oh yeah, when Newsom cleaned it up for Xi Jinping to come through. Yeah.
It may be that bad again. I don't know, but we're walking to this restaurant, and one guy started following us, and then one guy on a bike started kind of circling around us like a shark.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my girlfriend, I'm like, if I tell you to run, don't ask any questions, just fucking run. If I tell you to get down, just do what I ask you to do.
Yeah.
I said, these guys are looking to rob us, guaranteed. And she goes, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, I have my gun. He's going to bite off more than he can chew. I'm not going to be a victim. I'm going to protect you and me. And he circled around for a while, and then he went up ahead, and it was like he was waiting for us. And we just took a turn, and he stopped following us then. But like the biggest way I can describe it, it was like being in Gotham City. I'm not bullshitting you. It was, you could feel the evil.
Mm-hmm.
It was not good. Filthy. I didn't have the poop stories that everyone has. You know, I didn't see feces everywhere. I saw a couple, but nothing like
I
what
saw a
DeSantis said.
couple piles of human shit, but not too many.
Yeah, I mean it wasn't everywhere, but the blood was. I was just like, dude, someone like got their throat slit here.
And
I
nobody
will
cleaned,
not.
like they didn't clean it up.
Mm-mm,
That's the
no,
thing. You didn't clean up a pool of blood
no.
in San
Yeah,
Francisco. Do you know how much it costs to live in San Francisco?
it's a
It'll
shithole, dude.
it'll make you pass out when you start looking into rent prices and home prices in San Francisco. And to
Oh,
have that,
and then one night I went into Walgreens to buy like some Haagen Dazs ice cream because I felt like ice cream. It was chained up. The refrigerator had a chain around it. You had to get a clerk to come over and unlock it for
ice
ice
cream,
cream.
the most innocent
Yes.
snack ever, ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
But they can't because people will come in and take it and walk out. Bottom
Mm-hmm.
line, it's
It,
crazy. It's Gotham City with no Batman.
no
It's
Batman.
7th and Market. If you like heroin and fentanyl, that's your spot because you're gonna find 100 people milling
Mm-hmm.
around there, filthy, crazy, on drugs, selling drugs, doing drugs. I saw a guy passed out, face down in the gutter. He was breathing with his pants around his ankles. Another guy across the street was smoking what I assume was, I don't know, meth. It was on a piece of foil with a straw. I don't know. Um, I did see poop across from our hotel. And again, if you're going into San Francisco, knowing what it is, you're going to pay for a nice hotel. You're not
Oh,
staying
you
in the
better.
Super
You
8.
better.
So
No.
we're staying in a nice hotel right across the street. We're walking to the parking garage. There's a pile of human shit. You know what human shit looks like. It wasn't somebody's dog.
Mm-mm.
And right next to it was broken glass from somebody's car. So yeah, San Francisco is, it's crazy. And again, it's not like, oh, if it's cheap to live there, that's okay to have that. No. But if you're going to have that, you would think the cost of living there would some kind of extra police patrol, security, cleanliness. Where's your money going? Basically, the median rent in San Francisco is $6,000 a month, and for that, you're getting
A
Gotham City.
shithole.
You're
Yeah.
getting
Well,
poop,
yeah.
blood. Yeah, it's awful. So unless you got a good reason, unless there's a Macklemore in your life, don't do it. Don't go to San
Don't do
Francisco.
it. Don't go to
Unless you're,
San
again,
Francisco.
unless you're a heroin addict and you like fentanyl, go. But if not, don't.
If you're a
Because
prime rib addict, you should go to the House of Prime
yeah,
Rib.
if your addiction to red meat is calling you, then I guess you got to heed the call. But make
Yes.
sure, seriously, be safe. Make sure if you have a CCW, carry that shit. Be aware.
Mm-hmm.
Don't look like a victim. Don't have a bag full of shit in your arm and your phone and you're fumbling. Don't look like a victim. Look over your shoulder
Yeah.
every once in a while. Look like you know where you're going. Look
Mm-hmm.
confident because the sharks will circle, they will spot you and they'll victimize you. And why not? Because there's no fear of consequence. I don't even know if they have enough cops to answer all the calls. They've been demoralized, they've been defunded, and the wolves have been emboldened, and they know that they can do what they want. There was a rash of people breaking into people's cars. There was a dude had a video. Some guy broke into his car and was sleeping in the back seat of his car, and then got out and cussed the dude out for waking him up. That's the mentality of the criminal. Are you kidding me? I would have beat that dude half to death. What are you doing? What if my wife went down to the car?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I do have one more question for you.
Okay.
Um, what would you say to a young officer, Kenny? Um, you're about to go out on your first patrol. It's your first day with Yuba County. You're walking out of the department, you're going to your car, but future Kenny has 1 minute to tell you something. What
Ooh.
wisdom do you impart on him? What heads up do you give him? And he's going to listen. The young Kenny's going to listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you tell this young man before he embarks on the bulk of his law enforcement career?
Well, I mean, I think it would actually be kind of a recap of everything we kind of talked about today. Um, the first thing is take pride in your work. I always believe I've done that. That's why if I get frustrated, that's why I get frustrated because I give a shit. Um, then I would say slow down. It's a very high speed job. Things are moving very fluidly. But slow down and take a minute. Take those times that you can to decompress if you can. Sometimes you can't, but you know, there's really no hurry. Like the calls are going to be there no matter what. Now, if someone's calling for help, then yeah, you got to go. But slow down. Definitely slow down. And then another one would be careful. Like my dad said, be careful what you see. Like if you don't have to see it, you don't need to see it. Um, do the job, but when like there's three officers on a fatal collision and you're not needed there, don't go up there just to see what it looks like. Like curiosity, man. That's you know, and I think I've tried to teach trainees that, but it's tough because it's like when you're on the road and there's an automobile accident, everyone slows down to look, no
Mhm.
matter how bad. It's just how we are as humans. Um, and then just appreciate the opportunities that you will have in your career just by being in law enforcement. Um, there's a lot of cool things that you get to do. Um, have a badass dog, fly on helicopters, like all that. Like take that in and actually appreciate it. You know, as cops in the United States, we get some of the best training in the world. Really appreciate that. And that's one reason why I think that law enforcement is as good as it is because of the training. So I think that's what I would pretty much say.
And again, he's going to listen to you, so that's sound advice. Um, I thank you, Kenny. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your service to this community, and I thank you for realizing that there was an issue and taking steps to to fix it, to deal with it. For I thank you on behalf of your family. I thank
Yeah,
you for everything you've done, the calls that you've answered, the lives that you've saved, the lives that you've changed. If they haven't thanked you, I'm thanking you, and I wish you success in whatever life brings you. Whether you get back to the force, you go private, whatever you do. I wish you success in it because you deserve it. You've earned it. Kids out there, take a page from his book, be focused, have a goal, and work at it. If you do those three things, success will find you. It just will. Um, and yeah, man, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your
no problem.
friendship.
No, it's an honor.
And we've got to go to lunch, Kenny. We got to make this happen.
That-
So,
You know what? We can go to that soul food place. I'll take you.
all right, you find out the name. We're there. Deal.
All right. Yeah, deal.
Um, and last thing I want to thank you for is being such a good dad because, as I mentioned before, you're putting confident, well rounded people in the world. And that's invaluable because we see what happens when parents don't. We see what happens with shitty parents and the kind of little monsters they put out for us to deal with. Those are the people we're going
100%.
to bump into and have issues with because they chose to have children and not do what they're supposed to. So, parents who are doing their job, do whatever your best is. If you're doing it, appreciate it because we need more good people in the world. And that has been another episode of Green's House. Again, I thank Mr. Kenny for his time. And until the next time, we out.